Welcome to Door County, Wisconsin.
Located in the northeastern part of the Badger State, Door County is a charming and picturesque destination, known for its natural beauty and quaint coastal communities. Bordered by Lake Michigan to the east and Green Bay to the west, the county boasts stunning waterfront views, pristine beaches, and vibrant fall foliage that draws visitors year-round.
With its lavender, lighthouses, kayaking, and fishing, Door County offers a serene escape for nature enthusiasts, families, and couples seeking a tranquil retreat in the heart of the Midwest. All that would change in 2019 when a string of gruesome murders shocked the quaint coastal county.
This is the story of the Door County Key Killer, an unsolved string of serial killings claiming the lives of 7 residents and terrifying hundreds more.
So, we invite you to join us as we take a look into these crimes, the people involved, and the theories as to who may have been behind the whole affair.
Dearest listeners,
welcome to Locked Door County.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked Door County.
We are officially past the halfway point in the story, but trust me, things have barely begun to scratch the surface.
We still have countless twists in store.
But first, we have to expand on something from last episode.
You see, last episode we talked about how the case was reclassified as a serial killing.
And we cruelly made you wait until today to learn what that meant for the case.
So let's start there.
Saturday, the 28th, the Door County PD announced the case was a suspected serial killing, changing from 3 eerily similar and unrelated murders to one connected case.
Of course, looking back it's clear, especially when compiled into one series, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Now, the first major change is that serial killer cases are jurisdiction of the FBI, or Federal Bureau of Investigation, if you're nasty.
Along with the stronger means, much more funding, and prominence, it also meant that an agent of the FBI would become lead investigator. In this case, that would be Special Agent Amy Riviera. Now, Agent Riviera had a clean history in the Bureau of working hard on straightforward cases.
She was known for her pattern of taking on a case with a small group and wrapping it up within a month or two, but those were rarely cases as big as the now nationally acclaimed Door County Key Killer.
She had grown up in Bogota, Colombia, and moved to the U.S. to study finance.
Halfway through her degree, her law and money professor was arrested on numerous white-collar crimes.
Ironic.
When the FBI questioned her, they realized she might be perfect as an asset in an investigation into a Colombian cartel in Savannah.
She took an expedited training course at Quantico and became a field informant.
After a few months undercover, she helped them bring the group down, and she was offered a full position with the Bureau, but that was as an informant.
As a true agent, this was her biggest case yet, and would remain the biggest case of her career.
Her address, upon taking over the case, went viral, and she was quickly a favorite among the press circuit.
Here's a clip from her speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a deep honor to be taking over this case from the Door County Police and the brilliant Detective Walnut. I have asked Detective Walnut to remain as this advisor in the case, and most instances, we will be working closely with the DCPD. I understand this is scary times, but we're here and we are here to help.
But we'll get back to her later.
Now, some of you may be wondering how Detective Walnut felt about this, but that's where the next twist comes into play.
Detective Walnut had secretly been battling stage 4 cancer. It had spread from her pancreas to 4 other areas, and it was bad. But they kept it hidden, and it would be a week into the FBI takeover that Special Agent Riviera would find out Detective Walnut's truth and help her keep the diagnosis secret. The two would bond closely during the investigation.
Another addition would be Dr. Marilyn Winehouse, a German-born private medical examiner who specialized in serial killer cases.
Born Maria Therese Schulz-Weingärtner, she changed her name when she moved to London to study medicine. Finding a love of practicing surgery on corpses, she was recruited by a medical examiner during an accidental corpse swap.
Get this. 2 corpses, same name. One was donated to science, the other was a recent murder victim.
Anyway, Marilyn would spend a day shadowing that medical examiner and switch study fields the next morning. Marilyn would notably also work on the Block Flat, Will Hastings, and Hillchurch cases.
We'll probably find her in season 2.
The case was bolstered, but the public was scared.
Detective Walnut would give a few interviews with national news bearing false hope that they were close to finding the killer, and the public slowly started to believe them.
Until the eve of October, a strange letter would arrive on Detective Walnut's doorstep, warning them that if they did not act fast, there would be another murder, the exact wording foreshadowing the death next in the case.
Quote, "Find them, or it's curtains for all of us."
So, October 2nd, around 9 a.m., police would be shocked to find theater magnate Boone L'Etape dead, hanging by a red velvet noose from the side of a lighthouse.
Around his neck, a keychain and a suicide note.
So who was Mr. L'Etape?
Boone, or René Alboun L'Etape, was born in Dijon to two French theater actors, Julie Albin and Vincent L'Etape. Now his father, born Vincent Pierre, changed his name to fit his career, as L'Etape is French for stage.
The family would move to New York when René Alboun was 10, and he would change his name to Boone when he was bullied for having a girl's name. So much for international flair.
He would grow up in the theater, and when the time came, he studied to become a director. He would direct a few generally panned and poorly received plays off-Broadway until he met Claire, his wife. Claire was a critic who he had planned to seduce for a good previews review, but in doing so, he fell for her, and the two would marry a year later.
In 2016, he would direct A Night of Love, Lies, and Champagne, a semi-autobiographical play about their love story, which would premiere at the Skylight Opera in Milwaukee, where Claire had connections.
It was his first hit and would transfer to Broadway in 2017, winning him a Tony and a Drama Desk Award. He would direct two more plays before his death, The Red Velvet Rope and The Lighthouse.
The latter was a second semi-autobiographical play written by his wife about her dream of living in a lighthouse by the lake in her home of Door County, when in reality she knew that she never would.
Claire died of complications from Huntington's disease, a progressive neurodegenerative disease, a month after it premiered in June of 2018. It would lose the Tony for the best play to The Ferryman.
From her diagnosis, Boone had played every card up his sleeve to fulfill her dream, leading to his ties to Primrose Holding,
the brokerage firm run by Julia von Hindenburg.
She would find him a lighthouse in 2019.
The same lighthouse where he would die.
More details to come after the break.
Welcome back to Lockdoor County. Before the break, we learned about Monsieur Boone L'Etape, a theater director and a hopeless romantic.
And murder victim.
That too.
Anyway, let's get into the timeline.
At 10 a.m. on the 1st of October, Boone would arrive at General Mitchell Airport in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, accompanied by friend and producing partner Rubina Levi.
4 hours later, he would arrive at a small hotel in Sister Bay, Door County. At 4 p.m., he would leave the hotel to go to the Batella Lighthouse for the signing ceremony.
He never explained why he still bought the lighthouse after Claire's death, but he did.
For $26 million.
He arrived at the lighthouse around 5. With him would be Rubina, Julia von Hindenburg, Julia's lawyer Christina Berg, owners Lilias and Patrick Owens, and the groundsman Theodore Teddy Sturgeon.
After about a half hour, the property was signed over and the Owenses were paid and left. Before 6 p.m., only Boone, Rubina, and Teddy were left on the property.
Rubina would later go on to tell the police that she left to go back to the hotel around 6:30 and that Teddy had gone around the same time.
The timeline remains pretty vague until the next day at 9 a.m. when one Miss Cheryl Babbitt, walking her dog on the beach, would find Boone dead hanging from the lighthouse.
Police arrive at 9:20 and lock the place down. Rubina, his emergency contact, is called to the scene and faints upon seeing the corpse.
Even worse, it isn't until 4 hours later at 1 p.m. that authorities are able to get the body back down from the lighthouse.
Police immediately began to question the last to see him there, everyone involved in the sale.
But we'll get into that in a bit.
Police at first weren't sure whether or not it was a suicide.
They could see a letter attached to the victim from the ground, but until he was securely brought back down, they couldn't figure out what it said. When they finally got him down, they sent the victim and a length of the noose to the FBI medical examiners.
Dr. Winehouse, in her first notes in the case, would describe the victim as follows.
Cheap trick. Victim was strangled before being hung. Definite cause of death. Clearly an attempted cover-up. Issue is, he had signed the suicide note, so there was something. I ran it by my handwriting guy, and he found it to be a perfect match. Boone signed the note.
But Special Agent Riviera was one step ahead, pointing out,
The note was typed, but his signature was real. He may not have written the letter, but he was forced to sign it.
That Agent Riviera sure is one smart cookie.
When shown to Rubina, she argued that the letter sounded nothing like Boone, and that his signature was missing. Next to his real signature, apparently Boone signed every correspondence with the French bisou, or little kiss, a glaring sign that although he signed the note, it was not the suicide it appeared to be.
Police were also quickly aware of the fact that the letter was fastened to the noose by an empty keyring, the Door County key killer's calling card.
This was the fourth in the Door County key killer's crimes, and it was perfectly alluded to in the letter to Detective Walnut. The killer was, at least to the police's knowledge, starting to toy with them.
A classic serial killer move. I mean, just think back to the Zodiac killer and his cryptic messages to the police.
Police also found it rather poignant that he was killed in a connection to his latest 2 plays. He was hung from a lighthouse by a red velvet rope. There was clearly something more to this murder.
Detective Walnut's first theory was a copycat killer. For all they knew, no one after Mrs. Levi had been there that night. Well, until a security camera caught a familiar face at the door.
Yes, I was there. I was out walking and saw the lighthouse was off, so I knocked to see what was going on. No one answered, so I went home. Don't tell me there's been another murder. I can't take it.
Yep, Hetty Lynn Spackle was there, and sadly to our knowledge, the last one to visit the lighthouse before his death. Once again, however, despite her horrible coincidental timing, she had no connection to Mr. L'Etape and thus was ignored by the police.
Later that day, they would call all 6 present at the signing in for questioning.
They quickly found motive for half, and even a prime suspect, when they found a letter from Teddy to Boone on his desk.
Unlike the suicide note, this was handwritten.
"How dare you, you big city Euro trash bastard," it read. "I've worked here for over 20 years and you think you can waltz in here with your money and destroy everything I spent my life building? Not on my watch, not on your life."
Really not a good look for Teddy.
But I did have fun reading it. Police pressed him on the matter and got very little. He spoke in short sentences and mainly repeated a core refrain, insisting that he was innocent.
Though Detective Walnut was unable to find any semblance of reason in his statement, it became clear that Boone had planned to fire Teddy and rip out his prize-winning rose garden. Teddy explained that he was fine with an early retirement, but refused to allow the roses to be destroyed.
But Rubina retorted, explaining that the roses were only going to be lifted to allow for Claire to be buried beneath them, a fact that Teddy was unaware of.
Issue is, Teddy had a violent past in which he on more than one occasion had threatened and carried out revenge plots against those he felt had wronged him. In 1997, he drove his car through a pumpkin patch after the farmer stole his spot at the farmer's market.
And in 2009, he put fireworks inside a molding pumpkin and threw it from a moving pickup truck at a woman who canceled an order for 150 bouquets an hour before delivery. So what I'm seeing is he's a little excited, but it's not like he was ever really in the wrong.
Exactly. No one was ever hurt by his actions. The pumpkin patch incident was at 2 a.m. and he was just charged with drunken disorderly and given a DUI, and the assault charge was dropped when he threatened to countersuit for the over $60,000 she owed him for the late cancellation.
But still, he had a violent past of retribution, so suspect number 1.
After the break, we're going to take a look into the other suspects, ties to the other victims, and take a short walk down the supernatural lane with a supposed curse. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to this 4th episode of Locked Door County. Before the break, we learned about the murder of Boone L'Etape and about police's first suspect, groundskeeper scorned, Teddy Sturgeon.
But we promised you more suspects and some superstition, so let's move right along.
The next day, press would release news of Boone's death, and 2 days later, the FBI tip line was left a voicemail from an anonymous female caller in New York City claiming to be a former business associate.
She suggested the police look into the finances of Boone's latest play, An American Requiem.
When they did, police found multiple financial discrepancies and possible proof of embezzlement and fraud.
This led to a mass subpoena of financial and administrative documents.
And the following strongly worded voicemail.
All right, time's up. Pay me the money or I will make your life very unpleasant. You don't mess with me. I get you want to buy that lighthouse, but not with my money, okay? And no, this is my friendly threat letter, so make the right choice.
Police now had a second solid motive and spoke to Rubina.
He was stealing my money, but I didn't want the man dead. I was threatening a lawsuit, but think about it. He was my meal ticket. Why would I kill him? I'm now out a big name director, and hell, no one wants to do that play.
Fair defense there.
Around the same time, police would bring in the previous owners for questioning. Patrick and Lilius Owens owned the lighthouse for 12 years prior to the sale and used it as a wedding and event venue.
Issue is, they had tried to convince Boone not to buy the property, a fact that would be brought to the attention of the police by lawyer Tina Berg.
It was stupid, but I guess they might have been right. Lilius had said the place was dangerous. My inspector found nothing in the building, so I approached them again, and I don't know how to put it.
We tried. I knew this was going to happen.
She's being dramatic.
I told them to put it in the contract.
Lil-
Stop, Patrick.
This is ludicrous.
No, it actually isn't.
Their bickering would last another 10 minutes.
You're going to think I'm crazy.
Too late, Pumpkin.
That lighthouse is cursed. They want me to put it in the sales contract, and normally I would, but Julia was adamantly against it.
Yes, I was against it. It's stupid, and I needed the deal to go through. He was heartbroken, and in all honesty, it wouldn't have stopped him.
Now, Rubina disagreed, adamantly.
Had he known about a curse? Never. That theater man was superstitious.
But what was the curse?
The curse was placed on the house by a witch 100 years ago.
Jesus Christ. I love you, honey.
The owners before us warned us that she had caught their son sneaking into her garden, stealing fruits, and so she cursed the lighthouse.
Isn't that the plot of Into the Woods?
No, that was the husband.
Oh.
I can't believe I'm asking this. What's the curse?
That on the full moon, the owner would be driven mad by her vengeful taunts.
Jesus Christ.
No, let her talk.
So, was Boone driven mad by the vengeful taunts of a 100-year-old witch?
It was suicide.
It was murder.
Thank you.
Maybe his killer was driven mad, and
I think we've had enough. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Owens.
Sadly, police had little to show since their first big break with Teddy, and with social unrest at an all-time high, that wasn't good.
Amy had to redirect her team, and fast. Enter one agent by the name of Thomas Tatler.
Tom had found a link between all 4 victims.
In true bougie murder fashion, it was a Swiss bank account.
Classic.
Schloss Banking was founded in Basel in 1887 and has been the trusted bank for the rich and famous ever since. It is a deeply secretive company, but a few details are public about its clients, primarily the prime signatory on an account.
Which Boone was.
The bank, after receiving a subpoena, released documents that prove all 4 victims were tied to the account, with payments from Boone being left in the Door County Federal Secure Storage Depository boxes of all 3 prior victims.
Issue is, most of the information was inaccessible, mainly the names of the 7 others tied to the account who had received similar direct cash deposits.
And anyone who knows anything about banking can tell you that this was odd.
And Amy certainly agrees in a memo to the head of the FBI White-Collar Crimes Department.
I need you to look into Schloss Banking. I get that the Swiss can be hard, but they know things I need to know. There's 7 others. And if we can find them, we can find the next victims before they become victims. And hell, I'll bet that's how we found the killer. But I don't have the power to get that out of them. You do.
The next day, a door would knock at the police department, with a bit of big news.
It was Hetty Lynn Spackle.
And with that revelation, let's take one last break.
Welcome back to the last leg of this episode of Locked Door County.
Before the break, we learned about Rubina's grudge, a link between all 4 victims.
And a possible curse?
And then, just when we thought the investigation was even worse off, in a real twist of fate, Hetty Lynn came in clutch with a whammy.
I remember something. I saw a second man.
What?
When I knocked, I saw a man behind the window.
Excuse me?
When I knocked, I saw a man behind the window, but it wasn't the dead guy. I saw his picture in the news. I didn't see his face, but I saw a man, and he looked like him. Him, Mr. Marlin.
That's a massive accusation, Miss Spackle.
I know what I saw.
As great as it is that Hetty Lynn had recognized him from the newspaper that she brought with her,
Issue is, Harry had an airtight alibi, as he was having dinner with Julia von Hindenburg, who went on the record defending him.
No, he was definitely with me. Enrico and Rebecca went to dinner together, and we decided to try to settle our differences over a bottle of wine.
So who do we trust?
Admittedly, the biggest issue here is that Harry Marlin had no earthly reason to stage the death of Boone L'Etape.
In this case, we have 7 names at play.
Rubina Levi had the means to kill and possibly the opportunity. She could have been confused with Harry through the glass and had recently fallen out with her business partner over his mishandling of her money.
Means, motive, and opportunity.
Same with Teddy, who is equally notable for his history of violent revenge. He was fired and flew into a fiery rage.
He had means, motive, and opportunity.
Issue is that the connections to the 3 other victims rule them out, as Teddy had no connections to them and Rubina was not in the stage for the murders. So unless the murder was just an unlucky coincidence,
or a copycat killer,
we can remove them from the list.
Next are the Owenses. Lilius hasn't the motive, but her husband does fit the description of the man Hetty Lynn saw. He did look similar to Harry.
Which leads us up to Harry, who had no connection to the murder other than Hetty Lynn's frosted window witnessing.
And finally, Julia and Tina, who had no benefit in his death nor any motivation to kill him. If anything, it hurt Julia's business, as Boone had been on a short list of retained clients in her retirement. This means his death directly hurts her financially.
An anti-motive, if you will.
This murder would mark the 4th victim of the Door County Key Killer, and as a result lead to a few major changes in Door County. Let's let Commissioner Ross Mespel explain.
The following are a list of safety policies that have been enacted in light of the ongoing criminal investigation. Firstly, both Door and Kewaunee counties are instituting a 9 p.m. curfew. We have no plans of closing schools as no victims have been minors, though we suggest young people stay in groups when possible, preferably stay home. The same goes for grown-ups too. We cannot enforce any of this, but we do want more than anything for our citizens to remain safe.
So, Door County is in shambles.
Where do we go from here?
Well, sadly, the case only gets exponentially worse, with 2 murders in one night, one whose name we know.
It's not Hetty Lynn.
No, but it also isn't who you're expecting.
So join us next week as the case takes its darkest turn yet.
A sister's road trip, a drugged milkshake, and a shocking departure. Next episode on Locked Door County.
Thank you for listening. This has been an episode of Gonsbach Productions presents Truer Crimes, Locked Door County. The story, all names, characters, and incidents portrayed in this production are fictitious. No identification with actual persons, living or deceased, places, buildings, and products are intended or should be inferred. Theme music track composed and mastered by Carlos Ortiz.